What happens when a successful entrepreneur sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face questions so offensive that the entire studio falls silent? In just 27 seconds of one comment, a respected host turned a friendly conversation into the most shocking walkout in daytime television history. The Loose Women's studio buzzed with its usual energy. The cameras were ready, the audience settled into their seats, and the panel took their positions. Denise Welch sat at the head of the table, flanked by fellow panelists Ruth Langsford, Kay Adams, and Nadia Sawalha. Their guest, Dr. Sara Al Madani, walked onto the set with a warm smile. The audience applauded as she took her seat across from the panel. Dr. Sara was there to discuss her new business venture and her journey as an entrepreneur. She had built multiple successful companies and was known for her work empowering women in business. This was supposed to be a celebration of her achievements. Denise started the interview with what seemed like a standard question. So Sara, tell us about your background. Where are you from originally? Dr. Sara smiled warmly. I was born and raised in the United Arab Emirates. Dubai is my home, and it's where I built everything I have today. Denise leaned forward with a look that seemed less curious and more presumptuous. Right, Dubai. That must be very different from here. I imagine women there don't have the same freedoms we enjoy. You know, being able to work, make your own choices, that sort of thing. The smile on Dr. Sara's face faltered slightly. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Actually, I've had incredible opportunities. I started my first business when I was 15 years old. The support I received from my family, my community, and the business environment was amazing. I've never felt limited. Denise tilted her head with a patronizing expression. Well, that's lovely that you had support, but surely you can see the difference between there and here. I mean, we have real equality. Dr. Sara's eyes narrowed just a fraction. Real equality is something we should all strive for everywhere, but I think you might have some outdated ideas about what life is like where I'm from. Ruth Langsford jumped in quickly, sensing the tension building. That's remarkable, starting so young. 15 is incredibly impressive. Tell us about that first business. What inspired you? Dr. Sara's face lit up, grateful for the shift. Thank you, Ruth. It was a fashion company. I'd always loved design since I was a little girl. I would sketch outfits constantly. I saw a gap in the market for modest fashion that was also trendy and youthful. My family encouraged me to pursue it. My mother actually helped me with the initial planning. Kay Adams smiled encouragingly. And did it succeed right away, or was it a learning process? Oh, it was definitely a learning process, Dr. Sara laughed. I made so many mistakes in that first year, but each mistake taught me something valuable. By the time I was 17, the business was actually profitable. But Denise wasn't ready to move on. She interrupted with a sharp tone. Your family encouraged you? And that's surprising. Quite surprising, actually. I mean, from what we hear about that part of the world, women are usually told what to do, not encouraged to be independent. They're kept under control, aren't they? Dr. Sara's posture stiffened visibly. Her smile disappeared completely. I think there are a lot of misconceptions, Denise. A lot of stereotypes that don't reflect reality. My culture values both family and entrepreneurship. Women in my country are doctors, lawyers, business owners, politicians. I was never held back because of my gender. In fact, I was actively supported. Denise waved her hand dismissively. Well, you might have been lucky, but we all know the statistics. Women there don't have rights. What statistics are you referring to? Dr. Sara asked pointedly. Because I'd love to see them. Women make up a significant portion of the workforce. They hold government positions. Then they run major corporations. Kay Adams tried to redirect with some urgency in her voice. And now you have multiple businesses across different sectors. What's your latest venture? I heard it's in the technology space. Dr. Sara took a breath, trying to compose herself. Yes, thank you for asking. It's a tech startup that focuses on creating software solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. We're trying to democratize access to tools that have traditionally only been available to large corporations with big budgets. She was starting to explain the details when Denise interrupted again, her voice dripping with condescension. Before we get to that, I just find it fascinating how you're sitting here talking about women's empowerment and independence when you come from a place where women have to cover up completely and can't even drive cars. How do you reconcile that contradiction? The studio went quiet. You could hear people in the audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Dr. Sara took a slow, deliberate breath, her hands clasping together on the table. Women can drive in the UAE, Denise. They've been able to drive for decades. My mother drove me to school every single day. And what women choose to wear is their personal choice, just like it is here. Some women choose to dress modestly. Some don't. It's about choice and respect. Denise laughed dismissively. Oh, come on. We all know they don't really have a choice. You don't know that at all, Dr. Sara said, her voice getting firmer. You're speaking from a place of complete ignorance and making sweeping generalizations about millions of women. Nadia Sawalha shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly disturbed by where this was going. Sara, let's talk about your business model. I think our viewers would love to hear more. How are you different from other tech startups in your space? What makes your approach unique? Dr. Sara appreciated the lifeline and turned to Nadia with gratitude. Thank you, Nadia. We focus on creating accessible technology for small businesses. So many amazing tools exist. Things like advanced analytics, customer relationship management systems, inventory tracking, but they're priced for Fortune 500 companies. We want to make those tools available to everyone. A small bakery should have access to the same quality of business intelligence as a major chain. Ruth nodded enthusiastically. That sounds like it could really level the playing field. Exactly, Dr. Sara continued, warming to the topic. And we're not just translating existing tools. We're building from the ground up with small business needs in mind. Simple interfaces, affordable pricing, excellent customer support. We want to remove the barriers. Denise cut her off again, her tone aggressive. But you're working with women in the Middle East primarily, right? How do you navigate all those restrictions they face? The male guardianship systems? The limitations on what women can do without permission? It must be incredibly difficult to run a business when you need a man's signature for everything. Dr. Sara's jaw visibly tightened. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. I work with women all over the world. Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas, and yes, the Middle East. And I need to correct you again, very clearly. You're speaking about systems that either don't exist where I'm from or have been reformed years ago. You're painting an entire region with very broad, very inaccurate strokes. I have never needed a man's permission to do anything in my business career. Not once. I'm just asking questions, Denise said with a dismissive wave of her hand and a smirk. Our viewers want to know these things. They're curious about how it really works over there. Your viewers would be better served by accurate information rather than stereotypes, Dr. Sara responded coolly. Ruth tried once more, her voice almost pleading. Sara, your success is clearly inspiring to so many people. What advice would you give to young women who are just starting out in business? What do you wish someone had told you? Dr. Sara turned to Ruth gratefully, taking a moment to collect herself. Thank you, Ruth. I would say believe in yourself, even when others doubt you. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or cannot achieve based on their limited understanding of your circumstances. Surround yourself with people who support your vision and aren't afraid to challenge you constructively. Learn from your failures. They're not setbacks. They're education. And most importantly, stay true to your values while being flexible in your methods. The audience applauded her words. Several people nodded in agreement. Kay smiled. That's wonderful advice, applicable anywhere in the world. But Denise couldn't help herself. She laughed sharply, a cruel sound that cut through the moment. That's rich, really it is, coming from someone who probably had to get permission from a man, a husband or father or brother to even be here today, to get on a plane, to sit at this table. Let's be real about the situation. The audience gasped audibly. Multiple people made sounds of disapproval. Kay Adams's eyes widened in shock and her mouth fell open. Denise, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. Dr. Sara's voice remained calm but firm, though you could see the effort it took. I don't need permission from anyone. I am not anyone's property. I run my own companies. I make my own decisions. I travel the world freely, making my own choices about where I go, who I work with, and what I do. And the picture you're painting is not only completely inaccurate, it's deeply insulting, not just to me, but to millions of women. Denise shrugged with exaggerated casualness. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. We all know what it's like over there. We see the news, we read the reports. What reports? Dr. Sara demanded. What news are you watching? Because it clearly isn't giving you accurate information. You're relying on stereotypes and sensationalism instead of facts. Nadia jumped in, her voice supportive. Sara raises a valid point. Dubai is a major international business hub. Women hold significant positions there. Thank you, Nadia, Dr. Sara said. I appreciate that someone at this table has actually bothered to learn basic facts. But Denise wasn't backing down. Her face was flushed now, her voice rising. Look, I'm sure you've done well for yourself despite the circumstances. And good for you, really. But let's be honest about what those circumstances actually are. Women in your part of the world are oppressed. Systematically oppressed. That's just a fact. We can't pretend otherwise, just to be politically correct. Dr. Sara's composure began to crack. Her voice took on an edge. It's not a fact. It's a stereotype based on ignorance. And it's exactly this kind of willful ignorance that holds back real dialogue, real understanding, real progress. Ruth touched Denise's arm gently. Maybe we should move on to talking about Sara's achievements and her future plans, rather than making assumptions about her life. Denise pulled her arm away sharply. I'm not making assumptions. I'm addressing reality. Hard reality. She turned back to Dr. Sara. Don't you think you have a responsibility, a moral obligation even, to speak out about the oppression of women in your country? To use your platform? Oppression in my country? Dr. Sara's voice rose slightly for the first time. I've experienced more judgment, more condescension, more dismissiveness, more disrespect in the last 5 minutes sitting at this table than I have in my entire career back home. Think about that. The audience murmured loudly. Many people began to applaud Dr. Sara's response. Someone shouted, "She's right!" Denise's face flushed deeper red. Now that's unfair. That's completely unfair. We're just having a conversation. A robust conversation about important issues. A conversation? Dr. Sara leaned forward, her voice steady but intense. You've done nothing but lecture me about my own life, my own culture, my own experiences. You haven't asked me a single genuine question about my actual work. Every single question has been loaded with prejudice and preconceived notions. So this isn't a conversation. This is an interrogation based on stereotypes. Kay nodded slowly, looking uncomfortable. Sara has a point. We did invite her here specifically to discuss her business ventures and entrepreneurial journey. Denise rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please, don't be so sensitive. We're allowed to ask tough questions. This is what we do on this show. We tackle difficult subjects. Tough questions are fine, Dr. Sara said, her voice getting stronger. Tough questions are necessary. But what you're doing isn't asking tough questions. You're making statements based on ignorance and expecting me to defend myself against your misconceptions. You're expecting me to prove my humanity, my competence, my freedom. That's not journalism. That's not even basic courtesy. Ruth looked toward the producers off camera nervously, her face showing clear distress. Let's all take a breath here. Let's reset. But Denise wasn't finished. She seemed determined to prove her point. Ignorance? I think I know quite a bit about the world. Thank you very much. I've been doing this job for years. I've interviewed hundreds of people. And I know that women in the Middle East don't have the rights we have here in Britain. That's simply the truth. Dr. Sara stood up slowly, deliberately. The movement drew everyone's attention. That's it. I'm done. I came here in good faith to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, and empowerment. Instead, I've been subjected to ignorant, offensive generalizations from someone who clearly hasn't bothered to do even basic research. Nadia reached out with genuine concern. Sara, please sit down. Please. We can move past this. We can talk about your work. Dr. Sara shook her head firmly. No, Nadia. I appreciate the sentiment. But no. We can't move past this. Because the problem isn't just what's being said. It's the entitled attitude behind it. The assumption that she knows my life better than I do. The refusal to listen when I correct false statements. The dismissiveness. The condescension. Denise stood up as well, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I have every right to my opinions. This is a free country. I can say what I think. Opinions are one thing, Dr. Sara said, her voice steady and powerful. But you're stating things as facts that are simply objectively untrue. You're making claims about laws, about systems, about entire societies that you clearly know nothing about. And when I, someone who actually lives that reality, tries to correct you, you dismiss me. You wave me away like I'm the one who doesn't understand. That's not journalism. That's not conversation. That's arrogance. That's bigotry dressed up as concern. The studio was completely silent now. The audience sat frozen. Even the camera operators seemed to have stopped moving. Everyone was holding their breath, watching this moment unfold. Ruth spoke gently, almost whispering. Sara, we value your perspective. We really do. Please, let's continue. Let's talk about your work. Dr. Sara looked at Ruth with sad eyes, then at Kay and Nadia, and finally back at Denise. I appreciate that some of you tried to steer this in a better direction. I saw you trying, Ruth. I saw you, Kay. I saw you, Nadia. But I won't sit here and be disrespected. I won't be a prop for someone's narrow worldview. And I won't sit here and let my entire culture be slandered while I'm expected to smile and take it. Denise crossed her arms defensively. If you can't handle a few questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Maybe you're not ready for this kind of platform. Handle questions? Dr. Sara's voice was incredulous. I've handled interviews all over the world. CNN, BBC World Service, Bloomberg, Al Jazeera, major publications in Europe, Asia, America. I've sat with journalists who actually did their research, who asked informed questions, who treated me with basic respect, who saw me as a human being with expertise rather than a stereotype to be challenged. This isn't about handling questions. This is about not tolerating bigotry dressed up as curiosity. Kay spoke up firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. She's absolutely right, Denise. You crossed a line. Multiple lines, actually. Denise spun toward Kay, who was surprised by the direct challenge. Whose side are you on here? There are no sides, Kay replied steadily. But there is right and wrong. And the way you've conducted this interview is wrong. Completely wrong. Dr. Sara began to remove her microphone. I want to be clear about something before I leave. I love what I do. I love empowering women. I love building businesses. I love my culture and my home. And I refuse to apologize for any of it or explain it to someone who has already decided what they think without bothering to learn the truth. Nadia stood up. Sara, I'm sorry this happened. You deserved better. Dr. Sara nodded at her. Thank you. And thank you to those of you who tried to make this a real conversation. Denise scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're being oversensitive. Dr. Sara turned to face Denise directly. No, I'm being self-respecting. There's a difference. Our Ruth looked torn. Sara, please, let's start over. But Dr. Sara was already walking toward the exit. I came here to inspire people and talk about creating opportunities. I won't stay somewhere that turns that into an opportunity to tear me down based on where I'm from. The camera caught Denise's face, a mix of defiance and shock. Well, if she wants to storm off, that's her choice. Kay turned to Denise sharply. Stop! Just stop talking. The audience began to applaud as Dr. Sara walked off the set. The applause grew louder, filling the studio. Some audience members stood up. Denise looked around, confused by the response. What? What did I do? Ruth put her head in her hands. Denise, you really don't see it? See what? I asked perfectly reasonable questions about her background. Nadia shook her head. You attacked her background. You made assumptions. You refused to listen when she corrected you. That's not interviewing. That's ambushing. The applause continued as Dr. Sara disappeared backstage. The producers were frantically speaking into their headsets. The show had completely derailed. Denise sat back down, her face red. I stand by everything I said. Someone needs to ask these questions. Kay leaned forward. No, Denise. Someone needs to listen to the answers. And you didn't. Not once. Ruth looked at the camera. We need to go to a commercial break. But before they could cut away, a voice from the audience called out. Good for her. She didn't deserve that treatment. Other audience members echoed the sentiment. She was right to leave. Denise was out of line. That was hard to watch. Denise stood up again, facing the audience. Oh, so now I'm the villain for asking about women's rights? An audience member shouted back. You weren't asking about women's rights. You were telling a successful woman that she doesn't know her own life. Another voice joined in. She tried to correct you multiple times, and you wouldn't listen. Ruth tried to regain control. Okay, let's all calm down. But the damage was done. The studio was in chaos. Denise looked around at her fellow panelists, at the audience, at the cameras, and seemed to finally realize that this had gone terribly wrong. Kay spoke quietly, but firmly. You owe her an apology. Denise's mouth opened and closed. I was just what? Nadia pressed. Just being condescending? Just making assumptions? Just refusing to accept that someone else might know more about their own life than you do? The weight of what had happened settled over the studio. This wasn't just a disagreement. This wasn't just a heated moment. This was a complete breakdown of what an interview should be. Ruth looked exhausted. We really need to go to break. Denise slumped in her chair, the defiance draining from her face. I didn't mean for it to go like this. But it did, Kay said. Because you didn't listen. You didn't respect her. You came into this with your mind made up. A producer finally stepped onto the set, ushering them toward the break. But the audience was still buzzing, still processing what they had witnessed. One audience member spoke to another, loud enough for the microphones to catch. I felt so bad for her. She kept trying to have a real conversation and just got attacked. Did you see her face? Another replied. She was so composed even when Denise was being awful. Backstage, Dr. Sara was gathering her things. A production assistant approached her nervously. Dr. Al Madani, I'm so sorry about what happened out there. Dr. Sara gave a sad smile. It's not your fault, but thank you. For what it's worth, the assistant said, everyone back here thinks you handled that with incredible grace. I just couldn't sit there anymore, Dr. Sara said. I've worked too hard and come too far to let someone diminish my achievements and my culture like that. Back on set, the panel sat in uncomfortable silence during the commercial break. Denise stared at the table. Ruth checked her phone, reading messages from the producers. Kay and Nadia exchanged glances. Finally, Denise spoke. Maybe I came on a bit strong. Kay raised an eyebrow. A bit? Okay, maybe more than a bit, Denise conceded. But I still think the questions were valid. Ruth looked up from her phone. The questions might have been valid if they had been based on facts, but they weren't. She corrected you multiple times, and you ignored her. I just think, Denise started, then stopped. I thought I was... You thought you were what? Nadia asked. Being provocative? Being challenging? You were being disrespectful. The floor manager counted them back in. The cameras went live again. Ruth addressed the viewers directly. We want to acknowledge what just happened. Our guest, Dr. Sara Al Madani, left the interview after a heated exchange. We invited her here to discuss her remarkable career and her new business venture, and the conversation went in a direction that became uncomfortable and confrontational. Denise sat silently, a stark contrast to her earlier assertiveness. Kay added, Doctor, Al Madani is an accomplished entrepreneur who has built multiple successful businesses. She came here to share her story and instead faced questions that were based on stereotypes rather than her actual experiences. The audience applauded again. Nadia continued, We hope that Dr. Al Madani knows that many of us have great respect for what she's achieved, and we're sorry that this interview didn't reflect that. Ruth looked at Denise, waiting. The studio waited. Finally, Denise spoke. I may have approached some of my questions in the wrong way. The audience's reaction made it clear this wasn't enough. Someone called out, That's not an apology. Denise's face reddened again, but this time it seemed more from embarrassment than anger. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have listened better. I should have respected her perspective and her lived experience. It was too little, too late. Dr. Sara was gone, and the interview that should have been a platform for her to inspire and inform had instead become a spectacle of disrespect and ignorance. Kay turned to the camera. If you're watching, Dr. Al Madani, thank you for your dignity and your strength in that situation. The show limped through the rest of the episode, but everyone knew this was the moment that would define it. Not the planned segments, not the other guests, but the moment when a successful, articulate woman had to stand up and walk away because she refused to be treated as less than she was. In the control room, producers were already dealing with the fallout. Phones were ringing. Social media was exploding. The clip was being shared thousands of times. But back on set, as the show wrapped up, there was a palpable sense that something had shifted. The easy camaraderie of the panel felt strained. Denise looked shell-shocked. Ruth looked disappointed. Kay and Nadia looked frustrated. As the final credits rolled and the cameras switched off, the audience filed out, still talking about what they had witnessed. The energy in the room had completely changed from the excited anticipation at the start of the show. Denise removed her microphone and stood up slowly. I really didn't think it would go like that. That's the problem, Ruth said quietly. You didn't think. You didn't listen. You just talked. Kay gathered her notes. The question is whether you'll learn from this. Nadia added, Dr. Al Madani showed more professionalism walking out than some people show staying. And with that, the panel dispersed, leaving behind an empty set and the echoes of an interview that had gone spectacularly wrong. The chairs sat vacant, the lights dimmed, but the impact of those 27 seconds when Denise made that final dismissive comment about Dr. Sara needing permission lingered in the air. It was the moment that turned an interview into a walkout, a conversation into a confrontation, and a platform for inspiration into a lesson about the cost of arrogance and the power of standing up for yourself.